Hello everybody, my name is Sil, the DM, and today I'm going to be bringing you a very quick session recap for my Sands of Calimare campaign, titled Fun Time at Luther's. So we basically left off with Ryok returning from awakening his father, breaking whatever sort of curse or illness or prison he was in, and deciding that he needed a bath. Which led to some hijinks and then led to further hijinks this session, where Moors, again, without really understanding what they were doing, accidentally sort of like super gelling their hair back and getting a little panicked, um, which then led to more shenanigans where Nixandra and Kieran got involved, and they ended up managing to get the product out of uh, Moore's hair, but it also dyed several streaks of it a sort of blood red. And it was around this time when everything was happening that Ryok went downstairs to converse with Aesir for a little bit, who was getting progressively drunk and sulking. Um, Eventually, the two of them made their way upstairs, I believe, when Blair went to fetch them. Because during all of the bathroom hijinks, Luther received a message, sort of communication magically, that the Jarl had a job for Blair and her companions, and Ryok and just the whole gang, basically. So her and Luther returned to his familial apartment, the room he was allowing everyone else to use, um, and found two of them missing. And Blair quickly went to get them. And at this point, they had a bit of a discussion about the tub and the bathroom in general. And Luther did apologize. He just showed them how the tub worked, taught them the magical commands, as it is enchanted, to control the temperature, the flow of the water, as well as something he called full service, which no one was willing to try yet. Uh, but he also went through just a few other things the tub could do using various commands. Um, and a few he kept to himself and sort of played with them later. Um, and including an implied command that fills the tub with beans. Um, so the female members of the party, Kieran, Nixandra, and Blair, all took a quick bath, feeling the need for one. While the guys just sort of chatted and caught up, and Moores asked Luther some questions, and they all sort of just talked for a little while and had a bit of fun role play. It was very good, but it doesn't make for exciting TV. Um, and didn't reveal anything extremely crucial. They just learned that Luther was from here and born and raised here. I don't think they really delved too deeply into Luther's character or anything. I don't remember. At which point, everyone came back and he told them what was wrong. That a few, they had made a few jokes about animals at some point, I believe, as well. And Luther brought up how dangerous porcupines were, um, because the porcupines here sort of explode in quills. They have sort of like a cone attack, um, which everyone took as a funny joke. But this would prove to be Chekov's porcupine, as later in the story you'll find out. Um, Once everyone was bathed and able to communicate and hear each other properly, Luther informed everyone that the Jarl was concerned. Apparently, some cattle had gone missing recently from one of the human operated ranches up here. A small business that just uses a bit of the grassland for cattle, which is used for the collection of milk, which the giants are quite fond of, as well as meat, which everyone is quite fond of. Um, so a few of them going missing was just concerning, and Liar wanted them to see if they could find them. Its details a little too low to the ground for most of his giants to find, and the humans they have jobs. The city isn't littered with adventurers; it's littered with people who have functions. Um, if the Jarl was going to send someone of the city to go do such a thing, it would probably be someone like Luther, who functions as sort of security with a few other jobs that, again, no one's really delved into what Luther does beyond waking the whales, and he explained that he works as a bouncer. Um, but they haven't really gotten a good grasp of Luther, who they are, and what they do, uh, really. Um, which is fine and interesting, and honestly, probably the way Luther likes it. Um, it's especially interesting since they've also never seen Luther sleep. Um, and it's been a day or so, and Luther just seems to be always awake. Um, which we don't know yet, but it could be funny. There's some stuff with Luther that will probably be expanded on in future episodes, I'd imagine. But the group wanting to help out and do something, partly out of just uh, concern for Ryok and wanting to provide a distraction. Also, just they don't like idle hands. It lets them think too much about dangerous things. Um, wanted to get out. However, of course, Aesir was a little drunk at this point, so suddenly going off on a potentially dangerous adventure sounded pretty dangerous. Um, at which point Luther offered Aesir a drink. Um, it was saying that the best thing when you're drunk is just to keep chasing it, and it'll sort of mellow you out. Which made Blair a little upset, but Luther was actually just pulling a fast one on Aesir and giving him a little homebrew hangover, sort of like a remedy for being drunk. Um, that hurt quite a bit. It just sort of purges the condition poisoned out of you, but uh, it does a bit of a drain on your stamina for a while, which Aesir was not happy for, but Luther was meh about. So at this point, the group set off. Luther gave them directions and wished them luck, walked them out of the hall, the large structure that houses many entire families, and again, like its own little micro city within the giant uh, city of Laputa. And everyone set out for the forest, wanting to go figure out what's wrong with these animals, get back, um, sort of earn their keep, earn that travel they're taking for Nyx, as Jarl Sokkar is sort of directing the city towards a location that Nyx gave um, in an effort for her to try and contact someone from her past. And during this, Nyx has been having a bit of a hard time. Um, the occasional flashes of memory of things that to Nyx happened just days ago, but in actuality happened 3,000 years ago. The loss of people important to her and just her whole world sort of being jerked into a new age. Well, technically, she skipped an entire 2 ages along the way, but that's beside the point. Uh, they eventually made their way to the forest and began exploring. For a little while, it was very peaceful and quiet. The grass was rather high. It almost completely smothers Ryok, who is very small. Um, and eventually, they ended up uh, pushing in through some trees, and Ryok, who had taken the lead, being the only person who had ever been on Laputa before, accidentally stomped on the foot of a porcupine. A sky porcupine. A dire sky porcupine, in fact, which is a medium sized creature that is capable of expending a cone of quills, which very quickly did a lot of damage. And its mate showed up as well, suddenly noticing that its partner was under attack, which led to a pretty interesting scrap. It was fun. It was fairly quick, but it was a good reopening to combat, as the campaign's been a little combat light, partially due to just attendance issues where I have combat planned and halfway through the session someone leaves and we were already two people down, and Now, I don't feel right throwing combat at the party where I'd be controlling three members of the party. Stuff like that. So the few instances in recent weeks or recent sessions where we would be able to uh, do combat, we haven't. So it's been a hot minute, and it was fun. Nixandra finally got to get into the thick of things and use her Hexblade's weapon, summoning up the Ash Hammer, a brilliant dark steel hammer with grooves running along the shaft, uh, the handle, and the head of the hammer. That as it's summoned and swung, ash sort of pours down the grooves and just sort of rains off of it. Um, they also get to see her use her Warlock's Course, which is sort of like this creeping, crawling ash that latches on to someone and coils around their body. And it was a good scrap. Ryok was down for most of it, having taken a Cone of the Quills and then a fierce bodying. Um, and a few other people got hurt pretty bad. The cones were dealing some damage. I think they only suffered three of them though, as I rolled really bad for the recharge on them, which made the porcupines less of a threat and more of a potentially dangerous inconvenience at best. Um, but the critters were dealt with, um, and the party was able to move on, eventually coming to a small river, a small stream. Um, and across the stream, they saw the bison they were looking for. It looked like one alpha bison had sort of lured around a harem almost of cows. And so they crossed the water, and Nixandra attempted to speak in a language that no one else understood, tried to communicate with the bison, which nobody asked about, so you don't get to know. But it did fail. Nixandra being able to do very unique things with her voice is fun, and a very fun design space for her race and character, but it's also all based off one of her statistics, which isn't, I believe, her best. I think it might be intelligence. Uh, so while she would have convinced an animal that wasn't so self-interested at the moment, the role she made probably would have worked. But the bison seems pretty content and not willing to just throw away its own little personal breeding harem. So they all started to move a bit closer, attempting to handle animal check. At which point, a figure came out nearby, a human, a farmer-looking sort of man, who looked a lot like Luther. Not like him, but they're very clearly of the same subspecies of human. Uh, in my world, there are ethnic groups of humans. There were five major ethnic groups that really encompass a lot of space. Uh, and no one really recognizes the one Luther and his family are from. But most of the humans they've seen, uh, the only real exception to it sort of being Sokkar, who is a half giant, and he sort of bears more half giant features than his human features. Uh, has the very dark tan skin, red eyes, and sort of very light brown hair. The figure asked them what they were trying to do with his bison, and they were like, "Oh, you found them. The Jarl sent us to come and find the bison, but if you found them, then that's excellent. We were just here to, I guess, help you bring them back." And they started to explain what was going on and how the Jarl had sent them. At this point, Nixandra noticed something odd about the bison, as she had been trying to use a animal skill check. Handle animal. There we go. Skill check. She had noticed something very weird and went very quickly on the defensive and was about to cast command. When the figure did something, and they all had to make an intelligence saving throw, uh, which they all promptly failed and ended up becoming stunned. And as they were sort of being blasted into unconsciousness, they heard the figure talking about a delicious meal. Uh, and we faded to black, and that was the session. A lot of the fun roleplay in Luther's apartment ate up a lot of time, and in 4 hour sessions, which are really like 3.5 hour sessions because of how long it takes for everyone to show up, or how long it takes for enough of us to show up to get going, or, we just are talking, stuff like that. Uh, it happens. It causes delays. Uh, but we got to some fun stuff, and we're gonna be interested in see where this is going next session. Uh, though this coming week is of course a Exelon week. I want to thank everyone for coming by. If you have questions about the campaign, characters, the world in general, please do ask them in the comments below. And I will see you all next time.